is the National Day of Action for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls and Gender Diverse People. Across the country, there were Sisters in Spirit vigils to commemorate the ongoing tragedy.
And I hope that the message continues to grow beyond those that are here, so that we as Indigenous women and girls can join around the circle in safety, and that we can lead a good path forward for the next generations to come.
Family members are saying that they do want justice and they want some type of recognition from the RCMP in regards to how their family members have been treated in the past.
I just want justice for her because there was nothing for her.
And for all the pain and hardships you have experienced in the years that have followed, I stand here today and offer my sincere apology.
I'm thankful for this apology, but it's an apology 3 decades too late from this attempted genocide from a settler colonial state.
There's a total injustice on my end. It feels like her life was never valued.
Well, Kaska women, I've always said, have taken the brunt of violence and the colonization, the injustice of the federal government right from the start.
I'm so heartbroken the way she died. Justice failed her. Really failed her.
When a family loses a loved one, their story doesn't end. It carries on through prayer and ceremony.
My sister's case is very heavy. After I found out, me and my family, we fell apart. We try to get support. We try to support each other.
Anne Mary Dick was killed over 60 years ago. In Upper Liard, Yukon, her story is a lost narrative. Mary Ann Dick was named after her late sister, and it's her life goal to bring the story of Anne Mary to light.
We've been fighting for justice for her since 2017, me and my sister Maggie. Before Maggie passed away, she told my brothers, don't give up. Don't give up on our sister. Justice wasn't fair for our sister Anne.
She was a residential school survivor and a Kaska mother who loved being on the land. Mary Ann only has stories that have been passed down.
I gathered up some stories about my sister. She was really kind and generous, a lot of fun. She was 18 years old when she got taken from us.
It's just the anger and confusion that goes through with all this. My older brother Tom was always talking about her, telling me stories about her, and she's always happy. Especially when she had her baby, she was on top of the world.
Mary Ann only recently obtained all of the information into her death. Hundreds of documents expose patterns of systemic racism, They pieced together what happened to Anne Mary on the night of July 13th, 1963. At the time, Mary Ann wasn't even born yet. Her brothers, Joseph and John, were still babies. Their cousin Rose Caesar was 15 years old.
We grew up together, all of us on the land. We had a really good time. We used to do all kinds of things, go sliding on the Cowboy Hill, midnight and everything, you know. Never in my mind thought anything tragic would happen.
July was the month Rose would get a break from residential school. She said she was out on the land with her family while Anne Mary stayed home.
It was during that time, I think, tragedy happened. When I read some of the report, I was so astonished. I never really knew the story, but I knew the house because I walked past that house so many times when I was young.
It all happened in Upper Liard, a Kaska settlement near Watson Lake. According to court documents, there was a drinking party of a group of Indians in a house. Early the next morning, Anne Mary was noticed lying dead on the kitchen floor. Witnesses said they thought she passed out after drinking. By the time police were called, RCMP said Anne Mary had been there for at least 12 hours. She was partially covered with a sleeping bag, her blouse lifted, revealing a bullet wound in her chest. Charlie Lewis, a 25-year-old man from Mayo, Yukon, was charged with murder. Seeing the autopsy report for the first time, Mary Ann and Joseph now know what their sister went through. The report begins describing Anne Mary as a well-developed native girl with a severely damaged heart, and evidence her body had been abused after her death. Peter Ladue and Timmy Dick were charged and convicted of indignity to a human body. They spent 2 years behind bars. In court, Timmy said he realized she was dead when he committed the act. And as for Charlie Lewis, he claimed that gun went off accidentally, and in the end, he was found not guilty.
Justice is not served. There's a total injustice on my end. It feels like her life was never valued.
It just seemed like, oh, it's another Indian woman. A lot of colonization, a lot of prejudice, and it still exists today.
When I first heard it, I was just devastated. I was hurt. I was angry, especially when your sister died like that, and the person that was responsible didn't get any time served, and that was the hardest part. I just thought about my parents and all that. Everything went through my mind at the same time.
I just want justice for her because there was nothing for her. There was absolutely nothing from the RCMP, no apologies from the RCMP.
Anne Mary's story is not an isolated incident, but part of a painful pattern that is echoed across generations. In 1967, the body of 26-year-old Tootsie Jimmy Charlie was found near the site of what used to be a landfill in Whitehorse. Her death still remains a mystery nearly 60 years later. 3 years ago, the RCMP apologized for an inadequate investigation into her death.
We've come here today to acknowledge the life of Miss Tootsie Jimmy Charlie and pay respect to her family, a respect that is long overdue. And for all the pain and hardships you have experienced in the years that have followed, I stand here today and offer my sincere apology.
Tootsie was a very loving mother and a loving sister.
The apology follows a complaint filed by Tootsie's family through the Civilian Review Complaints Commission for the RCMP. It came after her family testified at the inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in 2017.
It's been a long time coming for our family, and I really appreciate the acknowledgement that the RCMP did not do their job.
I'm thankful for this apology, but it's an apology 3 decades too late from this attempted genocide from a settler colonial state. And the sorrow that my aunties and uncles feel is in my heart, but as a rage, as an anger.
A coroner's inquest report concludes Tootsie died of misadventure due to exposure and alcohol consumption, and no foul play was suspected. It states she was last seen after she was released from a Whitehorse jail. 2 months later, her body was discovered. RCMP have reopened Tootsie's case and confirmed her death is suspicious. They released this sketch asking for the public's help.
That is our oldest, if not one of our oldest, unsolved cases.
Staff Sergeant Eric Lane is the plainclothes commander with the Yukon RCMP in Whitehorse. He says he can't speak about Tootsie's case now that the investigation is ongoing, but the hope is that the photo triggers some memories.
Unfortunately, because Tootsie's homicide occurred so long ago, back in 1967, the family members didn't have a photograph of her. So we were looking for a way to get her face out to the public, to try to stimulate conversation amongst the public, and try to leverage social media and the power of social media to get that image shared amongst people who used to live in the Yukon and may have been here around that time.
While the investigation into the death of Tootsie Jimmy Charlie is still ongoing, other families, like that of Anne Mary Dick, are still left searching for answers.
Jesus, I'm so sorry. He suffered so much that one night. Breaks my heart the way he died. You gotta help us, sis. We need your help, your guidance, your support. I know you're with us. Wish I got to know you. But get justice for you, sis.
Going up to where the house was located.
Upper Liard looks different today than it did 60 years ago. Newer homes sit along the Liard River, replacing the one where Anne Mary Dick spent her final moments.
Right where the house is built. Yeah.
That's where it was, right there.
Yeah, that was where Anne was found in old house.
Yeah, she was laying dead overnight right in this area here.
So how was Charlie Lewis found not guilty in the death of Anne Mary after confessing to the crime. It came down to a lack of evidence and mismanagement of the RCMP members that investigated the case. When 2 constables took him in for questioning, they didn't read him the usual police warning. According to court documents, Constable Michael Raspberry told him if he was involved in the death of Anne Mary, it would be best if he got it off his chest and eased his mind. That's when he confessed. But in the 60s, a suspect's confession was only valid in court if it was voluntary. Lewis even brought the constables to where he stored the gun 40 meters away from the house, and that still wasn't enough evidence to convict him of murder. At the trial, Constable John Hayes admitted to destroying some of the notes that were taken during the questioning by crumpling them up and throwing them away.
My heart is just really heavy, and knowing what happened to my sister, and it's going to take a whole outlook of, now that we know what happened to our sister, I don't think I'll be coming here very much.
Two hours north of Upper Liard is Francis Lake. A row of cabins along the shoreline where the Kaska community can reconnect with the land. It's where Marianne feels closest to her sister.
I worked on her case for so long, and how her life got taken, and I'll never come out of my head. I'd never come out of my heart.
Well, Kaska women, I've always said, have taken the brunt of violence and the colonization, the injustice of the federal government right from the start.
Anne Madje Rader is the executive director of the Liard Aboriginal Women's Society, offering supports to families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. She says this is the birthplace of many Kaska people before they were forcibly relocated to Upper Liard, including Marianne's family and her own.
Then we started to see a lot of pain, violence. Yeah, a lot of violence, no justice, and that's the way it's been.
It's been more than 3 years since the RCMP apologized to the family of Tootsie Jimmy Charlie for their mishandling of the investigation. Her family is still waiting for any new updates on her case. This sketch is the only photo that Darlene Jimmy and her siblings have of their mother.
I don't even know my mother. They took us away at a very early age. We were mostly in the residential school or living in private homes or other people's homes.
She died young, and we were just following the same footsteps, going through the same thing, going homes to homes.
Darlene and her brother Jack Jimmy meet with us to share the details of the complaint they filed against the RCMP, things that weren't shared with the media at the apology. The document states, soon after the forcible taking of her children, Tootsie was found intoxicated inside a bar in Whitehorse. Now this happened in 1967, a time when the Indian Act prohibited Indigenous people from consuming alcohol off reserve. So Tootsie was arrested. When she was released, she was only given a bus ticket to get back home to Upper Liard, over 4 hours away. She never did make it back. As we go through more pages of the complaint, more of the truth is revealed, biases and racism that led to the flawed investigation. It quotes a manuscript from Corporal Stanley McLeod, who helped with Tootsie's case. He wrote, the underlying manifestation of this tragedy was that we wrote off Tootsie's death as accidental, a poor substitute for what really occurred. There was also evidence that Tootsie was last seen with 2 men. That detail was dismissed in the investigation.
I feel angry, just really, really angry, upset, hurt. They should have did their job in the first place back in 1967. But no, they didn't. They just swept it under the rug and just...
Corporal McLeod is now retired, but he was questioned for the complaint in 2019. When asked if the investigation had explored whether Tootsie could have been sexually assaulted, he said, "She was the type of person it would have been consensual anyway. She wouldn't have been hard to rape. She had a history of drinking too much and screwing around with anybody that would take her." APTN Investigates has not been able to track McLeod down for comment.
I just couldn't get over it. Like, it's just horrible being a native back in them days. How they treated her, how they talked about her in real cruel, horrible way. They didn't even put that down on the paper when they apologized, how the cops talked about her.
My hope is always about justice, finding justice, right? And we live in an era where there is no justice. The court systems have failed our women.
I hope they just let her rest and find the person that actually did that to her. It's been going on too long.
In Francis Lake, benches honoring missing or murdered women overlook where Tootsie Jimmy Charlie and Anne Mary Dick once lived. The words inscribed here are both a promise and a prayer. Justice for my sister.
I'm so heartbroken the way she died. Justice failed her, really failed her.